What's up, fellow developers? My name's Tyler Potts, and it is day 2 of January, which means it's day 2 of our 31 videos, 31 days, 31 videos. So this is what we're going to be building in today's. It's a tip calculator. So how much was to build? We'll say, what, £150? What was your surface? How good was it? We'll say it was great. It was a good surface, but it wasn't best. And there's 3 of us. We're going to share it. We click tip. It says £10 each. So if we went to amazing and we click tip, it would say you should give them £15 each. If it was only good, then £5 each. If it was all right, you should tip them £2.50 each. And if it was terrible, you should tip them £0. Because if it was terrible, then it was terrible, right? You don't tip for a terrible surface. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay guys, so I've started a new pen on CodePen, and we are going to start off by making the markup. There's actually quite a bit of markup on this project, so we're going to do it in stages. We're going to start with the wrapper of the whole thing. So let's create an app wrapper, and then inside the app wrapper we're going to have calculator. Inside the calculator we're going to have a header with a H1 which says tip calculator, and that is what we're going to start with, as you can see on the left. And so let's start off with some default styling. So I'm going to go through the styling really quickly because this is not what it's about. So we're going to say in here we're going to have a margin of 0, a padding of 0, a box sizing of border box, and to finish it off we're going to have a body with a width 100 VW, a height of 100 VH, and a background image which is going to have our linear gradient of 2 bottom right, which is going to say hashtag #33 AACC, and next one's going to be hashtag #33CCA8. And that gives us this nice little gradient. We're then going to say display flex, justify content, center, align item center because we want to bring everything to the center, and then we're just going to give it a font family of Roboto sans serif. And that is that. Now we're going to get to the app. The app is going to have a position of relative because we're going to have some absolute position things in here, or we might not, who knows, we'll see. We're going to have a width of 100%, but we're going to have a max width, not a max width, a max width of 320 pixels, a background of RGBA, which is going to have 255, 255, 255, 1, maybe not one, I'll just say white. And then a border radius of 16 pixels. Overflow X will be hidden. Overflow Y will be scroll. And finally a box shadow of 0 pixels, 0 pixels, 20 pixels, RGBA 0, 0, 0, 0.2, and that should give us something which looks a little like what we've got over on the right there, which isn't the best. Let's do an and after, because we want to give this the sort of effect like it's a device or some sort. So we're going to go here, content, display, display as a block. That's not. Display as block with padding top. So we did this in our last video, but we're going to do something different. We're not just going to make it 100%, so it would be 100% width. We're actually going to say 100% divided by 3 divided by 4. So the iPad sort of aspect ratio. And that is what we've got there. Nice, so it's got some height to it. And then we're going to say calculator. We're going to say position absolute. We can't use this as position relative because else it will break the after we've done here. And that's why we need to make this position absolute with top 0, left 0, 0, right 0, and bottom 0. We could also do C index just to make sure it's above the after, which it will be, but just in case, C index 1, height 100%. overflow hidden or Y hidden, and then display flex. Flex direction column. There we go. So now that has given us this. We now want to style the header for this. So we're going to say header. We're then going to give this a background color of the green we use, which is 33CCAA. A padding of 10 pixels, 15 pixels, and a box shadow of 0 pixels, 3 pixels, 12 pixels, RGBA, 0, 0, 0, 0.2. There you go. So now we've got this nice looking header here. Let's style the H1 inside of it with the color of white, the text transform of uppercase, the font size of 24 pixels maybe, and then text align center. There we go. So that is the header done. So let's move on to the next part in the markup. So in the markup, we're going to have a main straight after the header. In the main, we're going to have a section, or we're going to have a section.options. And these are going to be our options. And the first one is going to be an input group, which is going to have the option of, well, we're going to do something called a pre, which is going to have the pound sign in. And it's going to be the sign for our pound. And we're going to have an input of number with the class of cost. We're not going to have a name or an ID. We don't need it. And then we can have placeholder equal this to how much was the bill. Nice. So we've got basically what we've done is we've set up the basics. Straight after this input group, let's bring that up. Is that right? Yeah. We're then going to have another input group, which needs bringing forward. And in this input group, we're going to have a select. Now the select is going to have a class of surface. It'll be required, and it will just say option. And the first option is obviously going to be disabled and selected, but in here it's going to say how was your surface ? I'm going to give it a few more options. I'm going to paste these in so we're not wasting time on it. And these options are, as you can see, the 5 options we had before. And these all have a value. So this is actually the percentage of what we should be giving them as a tip. So if it was an amazing, then you give them a 30% tip, 20, 10, 5, and 0. So one more input group. So we're going to say input group. And this one is just going to be an input of the type number with the class of people, because it's how many people there were. Again, we don't need a name or an ID, but we do need a placeholder of how many are sharing the bill ? There you go. So now we've got the 3 elements we need. We just need to style them up. So back to the CSS. We want to basically go into our input group or our main first. So after header, we'll say main. We'll say display. No, we're actually going to give this a flex of 100%, because this is going to take up the remainder of the page. We're then going to give it an overflow Y of scroll, and then a padding of 20 pixels, 15 pixels. We're then going to set the input group. We're going to give that a display of flex, because we want things to sit next to each other, with the margin bottom of 20 pixels. There we go. Now, the actual pre inside of this, we're going to display it as a flex item. We're going to justify content center, not cell center, and we're going to align item center. We're then going to add some padding of 10 pixels, 15 pixels, following with some color, 212121, a font size of 18 pixels, so just some basic styling, border bottom, we're going to have it as a 3 pixels solid and then the green color again, because that's going to be the underline for our whole thing. A background of EE and a border radius of 8 pixels, 0 pixels, 0 pixels, 0 pixels, just give it some sort of styling. We're then going to set up the input, which is going to have an appearance of none, a border of none, an outline of none, a background of none, a display of block, and a width of 100%. Give that W. There we go. So now you can see here it's looking a lot better. We now need to give it some padding. So width, we'll give it padding. Again, same as the thing above, 10 pixels, 15 pixels. A border bottom of 3 pixels solid, the same as we did above. So 33 CC 88. And color for the text, which would be 212121. And a font size. Oh God. A font size of 18 pixels, and we're going to style the placeholder to have the color of 666 and the font size of 14 pixels. There we go, that looks a lot better, and now it actually looks kind of close to what we want. We now need to style the select. So after the input we need to say select. We're going to give this the WebKit appearance none. You'll need to prefix everything else, like Mozilla and everything else on top of this. And I'm just going to give it an appearance of none as well. But for now, I'm just going to use those two so it works in this current browser. Border none, outline none. That's a new one. Outline none. Background, again, none. Along with display of block. A width of 100%, a border bottom of 3 pixels solid, 33 CC A8. So I could have actually probably concatenated both of the ones we've just done. That would have probably been better, to be honest. I'm a fool. Border radius of none though, because it starts off with border radius. And then a color of 212121, a font size of 16 pixels, and padding of 10 pixels, 15 pixels. And that is how it looks. There we go. So we've got that down. Now we just need to set up the how much we can tip section. So back into the HTML. We've styled all that. We now need a new section called tip wrap. We're then going to have a P saying you should tip. And then a H3 with the class of tip, which we're going to set equal to £0 to start with. And then underneath main, we're going to have a footer. And in the footer, we're going to give a button with the ID of tip button. And inside that, we're just going to say tip. So let's style up the rest of that. There we go. So the button's sitting at the very bottom there because we've made the centerpiece stretch. So just after the select, we're going to do tip wrap. So tip hyphen wrap, and we're going to give this a display of flex, a flex direction of column, a line item center, not content, and a justify content of center 2. That's looking good. Now we're just going to say inside of this, we're going to get the P, we're going to give it a color of 212121, a font size of 18, and a margin bottom of 15 pixels. Nice. And then the dot tip, we're going to give it a padding of 15 pixels, 25 pixels, a box shadow with 0 pixels, 0 pixels, 6 pixels, RGB 0, 0, 0, 0.2, and a background image of a linear gradient, which is basically literally going to be the exact same linear gradient we use at the top here. So I'm just going to copy it so I'm not wasting time. Although I half wrote it, so I pretty much did waste time. And then we're going to give it a color of FFF. We're now going to do the footer. So below this whole thing, we're going to say footer. We're going to give it a box shadow of 0 pixels, -3 pixels, 12 pixels, RGB A, once again 0.2 as always. We're going to style the button inside that with display block width 100%, padding of 10 pixels, 15 pixels, an appearance of none, a border of none, outline of none, and a background image of the same as we have up there, and a color of FFF, a font size of 20, a font weight 700 to make it bold, a text transform of uppercase, not upper alpha, uppercase, and a cursor of pointer. Now we have this button here, we have the tip a bit there, and the rest of it. So the styling is now complete. I'm not gonna lie, I might skip that. If I do, I'm sorry. The styling is all here. You can come find it on the link in the description. But if I do decide I'm gonna keep it in, then I'm sorry for how long it took. So the next part is the JavaScript, which is the part we're focusing on this video. It's actually quite short. So basically I'll explain it as we go. So we need to get the input. So we need the cost input, which is actually equal to document.querySelector. And it's just going to be the cost input we created. We're then going to get the surface input, which is the select, which is equal to querySelector. And the query selector will say dot surface, not surface. And finally a people input, which is equal to document.querySelector of dot people. And then we want the tip button too, which would be equal to document.querySelector. And that'll be hashtag tip-button. Now, the reason we're getting these is because we're going to need to get the values for each one. So in tip.button or tip_button, we're going to add an event listener. So everything will run off this one event listener, which is going to be when you actually click the button. We could work it out on the fly, so we could do stuff where we said if these change, then update the tip. But would need to do a lot of error checking in case these were empty. So add event listener, and in here we're actually not even going to do that as a function. We're going to create a separate function. We're going to create calc tip. So we're going to create a function called calc tip, where we're going to do all the functionality. So we're going to get the cost, which is actually going to be, we're going to convert what the value of the cost input.value is into a number. We're then going to get the surface, so we're going to say surface, and we're going to say it's also going to be converted into a number, so it's going to be surface input.value. But we're going to divide this by 100 because we're going to get basically because we gave it the value of 30, we want to divide that by 100 to give us, if I can actually type, will give us 0.3, which then we can use as basically the percentage. Obviously, we could have just done that in the actual markup, but I didn't think of that until just now. So we can also get the people, which will be another number converter, and we're going to say people input dot value. So the reason I'm using this number function here, basically what number does is it converts any value, anything you pass into it, be a string. So if we was to pass in 0 as a string, it would convert that into 0 as a number, like so. So that is why we're doing that. Oh, and then we need to actually say let tip equal. So the tip is going to basically work out. So we're going to say cost times surface, and remember the surface is a percentage, divided by the amount of people. So we're going to say the tip is equal to the cost times by surface divided by people. Now we want to do something else, so we can actually say let tip, yeah, we can say tip underscore element is equal to document dot query selector. And here we're going to say dot tip hyphen wrap dot tip. And we're going to say tip L dot inner text is equal to, and we're going to say # plus tip dot to fixed of 2, because we only want it to go to 2 decimal places. We're then going to say plus, and we're going to check if people is more than 1, because if people is more than 1, then we want to say we want to append each to the end of our string. So this is a ternary operator, but which basically means this is our conditional, so it's the same as saying if people is more than 1, do this, but else. So think of this as the colon. We don't need any things because it's one line. This first one will have question mark, that, and then we remove that. And that's how you do it in one line. That's called a ternary operator. And basically that is actually our code. So that's why it was quite a quick JavaScript piece, but again, JavaScript nonetheless. So how much was the bill? We're going to say like £1,200. It was a good bill. It was great. It wasn't amazing, but it was great. And there's 100 of us. No, we'll say there's 8 of us. We click tip. We're going to be paying £30 each. If there was just one of you for that, and you click tip, you're paying £240 for that tip. I mean, you don't have to, but you know that's what the tip calculator tells you should pay. And if the tip calculator tells you to pay that, you should pay it. You don't want to make an angry waiter or whatever you're tipping for person. Yeah, so anyway guys, this was a quick JavaScript piece. The CSS took the longest. I know it's supposed to be about JavaScript January, but there was JavaScript in here, and that's kind of my main aim, to teach you something new about JavaScript. I hope you've learned a couple of new things, such as the number converter, toFixed, which actually just converts it to, so if I was to actually remove toFixed, let me show you what happens. And then we say what, divided by 9 people. Okay, we're going to have to restart. So we'll say 1,225. How was your service? It was amazing. We'll divide it by 8 people. Click tip. You'll see we get this. And what happens now if we go dot to fixed of 2 decimal places? We do that again. If it loads, refresh it, because sometimes CodePen likes to hate me. And now we say 1225. How's your surface? We'll say great. And what we'll say again, it was by 8 people. Tip, you see it converts it down to just 2. And that's kind of what we want. So that's what the 2 is for. So I hope you learned something new. If you did, don't forget to leave a thumbs up. If you're new around here, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, because we do videos like this every single day for this whole month, and then onwards probably a weekly after that. So thank you for watching this video, people, and peace out.
Always do it on my own, so I gotta get through it. And the only thing I know is to love what I'm doing. Never give up, never slow, till I finally prove it.